Know this, boo. No book, not to one, will allow you to escape the thing that you have done. Hey nerds, welcome back to my channel. You know what's going on. We're continuing the review of the show Lovecraft Country. Today we're going to be covering episode 6, Meet Me in Daegu. But before we get into that, I just want to thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Now let's get into this. So this episode, we're really turning things around. We are not even focusing on the core characters anymore. We're focusing on a new character. This episode opens with us in the movie theater watching Meet Me in St. Louis. We zoom in on a young woman who is in the movie theater by herself, and she hops up out of her seat and just sings and dances along with the movie. This young woman is Gia, and we're getting her story today. Now, at this point in the story, it is currently fall of 1949 in South Korea. We see Gia and her mother preparing some kimchi together, and her mother points out they haven't been to a gimjang in a long time. A gimjang is like a kimchi preparation party, from what I understand. And there's a little bit of tension between Gia and her mother when she points this out. Her mother also points out that since the death of her husband, they have been disgraced and dishonored. Her mother then says the only way Gia can bring honor back to their family is if she brings home men. Now, when I first watched this, like for the very first time back in 2020, I was thinking, oh, she wants her daughter to find a husband, marry well, and have children. I could not have been more wrong. You're going to find out very quick why I was so wrong, so loud and so wrong. Next scene, and we see Gia at her nursing school, and she overhears some of her classmates gossiping about her best friend hanging out with some guy last night. Apparently she spent the night with him. Now, I don't know what that entails, but usually when they spend the night, it's a little. Cut to the very next scene, and we see Gia doing some speed dating. Our girl is not doing so well. She's not a fan favorite. She tries to share her interests of American films. One guy shames her, another guy shares the same interests, but he doesn't end up, choosing her to date. Her best friend, Young Ja, begs Gia to come out for coffee, but she tells her that her mother is insisting that she bring a man home. Young Ja's like, your mama is tripping, but I can tell she only wants the best for you. Gia's like, girl, you have no idea what I am putting up with. So Gia ends up at a bar by herself, and she ends up meeting this guy. Side note, in this scene, the crooner is singing in Spanish and Korean. Okay? I just wanted to say that. So they're feeling each other. Gia takes him home, and they get to bumping pocketbooks. So after old dude finishes, he finished, 9 tails spring from Gia's body, and they impale the guy. Now she can see this man's entire life through his memories. And after that, his body just blows to smithereens. I don't know if I can show it here, but like how people were exploding in the movie Ready or Not? Very similar to that. Turns out our girl Gia is actually a 9-tailed fox spirit called a kumiho. I believe this is also called by different names in other Asian cultures. For example, in the Chinese culture, they're called hulijins. Anyway, Gia's mom comes in right after this man goes and she's like, great, bring home 10 more. Gia is better than me. I couldn't have brought home no more men. On the one hand, I don't want to be sleeping with a bunch of strangers, and on the other hand, the blood got everywhere. It got in her vagine, in her booty crack, in her nostrils, and she has to scrub her room down every single time she brings somebody home. That's too much work. It's the summer of 1950 now, and we see Gia back in the movie theater, full house this time, but the theater gets to rumbling and shaking all around. Everyone comes outside to see American soldiers on tanks rolling through the streets. Next scene, and we see Gia and her mother having dinner or lunch, whichever one, on her birthday. Her mother made her favorite dish, and Gia points out that this also used to be her father's favorite dish, aka the mom's husband. Her mom is like, how do you even remember that? And she says, well, before I killed them, I absorbed their souls and I can see their memories. Now, let me clarify something so we're all on the same page and we're not missing anything. She can only absorb their souls and see their memories during intercourse. Did you do the math yet? Jia's father abused her in that way, because how else will she be able to do that? Her mom deflects and she's like, never open up your mouth about him ever again. Apparently her mother and a shaman summoned a kumiho and it jumped into Jia, and in order for Jia to be fully human again and rid of the kumiho spirit, she has to collect 100 souls, and she only needs 2 more. This poor girl, she can't enjoy her life because first there's this ass war going on, and second, her good for nothing mama is making her sleep with a bunch of random men's to get her humanity back. Moving right along, and Jia is at work with her best friend Youngja at the hospital. They're nurses, remember? It is a complete hellhole in there, and all these American soldiers are treating them like shit. Treating them like dirty animals, and they're literally there to help them. After their shift, Jia and Youngja are walking home, and Jia mentions that she saw Youngja whispering to someone very secretively in the corner and stuff. Turns out, Youngja knows a communist spy, and she also reveals that she too is a communist. Jia is a real ride or die because she's like, listen, I'm not gonna snitch, you don't have to worry about that. And then at that very moment, this lynch mob shows up and they're about to hang a man after he was exposed for being a communist. And this really upsets Youngja because she's like, we have, you know, different mindsets, we shouldn't be killed for it. Baby, do you remember where you're at? Youngja, honey, do you remember where you are? Baby, where you been at? We cut to the next scene and Jia has successfully collected another soul. Now she's down to 1 more soul, then she'll be free. And the kumiho spirit starts to speak through her, and she's unfamiliar with the different types of love, meaning familial love and like romantic love. And she's like, what's the difference? And she asks the mother why it was wrong for the father to love her in that way. And the mama was like, baby, I don't think you understand what happened. Your daddy took advantage of you. And I want to say this, there are times where the mom is addressing Jia, like her human side, or trying to, and then there are times where she's addressing the kumiho. So I think she's talking to the kumiho right now. But yeah, she's like, honey, you don't understand, that was not a type of love that parents should be giving to their kids. No parent should love their kids in that way. And that's why the mom had the shaman summon the kumiho in the first place, so she could kill her husband for what he did to Jia. And the kumiho is still speaking through Jia. She's like, girl, that 100 soul. I'm not going back to human. We're not doing this. And she's like, girl, I done killed so many men, I don't even know where your daughter's memories are. The mom is like, no, I don't believe you. I know my daughter is still in there somewhere. So the kumiho clocks tea and she says, listen, I know that your husband only married you because you were a social pariah. No one else would have taken you but him. You know, you had a baby out of wedlock, and he knew that if he married you, you would allow him to do anything because of your own mistakes. Mama ain't as, you know, innocent as she wants us to think. Yes, she wanted to avenge her daughter, but then she allowed that to happen to her daughter. So pick a side, pick a struggle. It's the next scene, and a group of nurses are taken to a checkpoint by the military. They got word that there was a commie mole on Jia's shift. And I'm not kidding, this much time went by before they started mowing them down. And then they get to Jia, it's her turn. The leading officer's gun runs out of bullets, so he calls over his private to come do the deed. The private is Tick. Yes, our Tick. Y'all forgot he was in the war, didn't y'all? Yeah. And just when Tick is about to end Jia, Youngja pulls a Spartacus and said, no, it's me, I'm the spy. Essentially saving Jia's life. So they pistol whip her, they knock her out, and they take her away. Jia is devastated because she knows her friend is not coming back. So now it's fall of 1950, and the safe space that Jia once knew of the movie theater has been closed down due to the war. She's working at the hospital and she sees Tik lying in a bed a few feet away. Young Ja's death is still fresh on her mind and she is plotting revenge on this man. And later that night, she watches Tik as he struggles to read a book. There was a bombing and his glasses broke, so he's not able to read his book. And it's then and there that Gia decides that Tik is going to be her last soul. Next scene, and she goes to change the sheets on Tik's bed, and Tik is struggling because he's so banged up, and he asks Gia to read the rest of his book to him. Can anyone guess what book he is reading? If you guessed The Count of Monte Cristo, you are correct. Gia spoils the ending for him, shady, but she's only seen the movie adaptation. Tik is like, well, the book and movie aren't always the same, so here you go. Go ahead and read it. You gotta read it now. She declines. She goes, don't try and get friendly. Later on, Tik has Gia meet his friend Sung, and she tells him that the movie theater's been shut down, so she can't spoil any more movies for him. Tik is starting to sympathize with her, saying that it must have been nice to go somewhere and hide from the world during all this craziness. So because Tik and Sung are from America, naive little Gia asks, have you met Judy Garland? Judy Garland is like her idol girl. That's why she loves Meet Me in St. Louis so much. And then she gets a crash course, crumbling her little dreams, bursting her little bubble about systemic racism in America. We also find out while Sung was drafted, Tik volunteered to be in this war. Tik relates to Gia by saying, just like you go to the movies to escape, I stick my nose in a book. Same thing. They are starting to build a beautiful rapport because now they're reading The Count of Monte Cristo together. Next scene, we see Sung escorting Gia onto the base so she can go and see Tik. Now, rules say there are no Koreans allowed on the base anymore unless they are comfort women. That's a nice way of saying prostitute. That's how Sung was able to sneak Gia in. But we're not on that type of time. Tik actually has a lovely evening planned for him and her. He was able to get a copy of the movie she was planning to see before the theater shut down. Y'all, look at him right here. He is so adorable, so giddy and pleased with himself. He got him a little girlfriend. Shout out to Uncle George. Pre-Artem, rest in peace. I'm sorry. He should have been in the whole show. Like this, he did not need to die. For what? Let me move on, because I got thoughts about that. Now Gia is officially in like with Tik, so what does she do? She takes him home. And before they have a chance to get busy, Tik is like, wait. I'm a virgin. Ah! Is that right, Madonna? And this lovable hunk of man is like, I just wanted to be honest with you. You know, when I'm with you, I'm at ease because you see the good in me. You see the best in me. Gia done fell in love with him, girl. And all I gotta say is, same. That's fair. Mama finds this out. She's like, why are you in love with this man? Need I remind you, darling, he killed your best friend. Think about that before you fall in love with him. Baby, when I tell you the loogie went flying, that is like top 5 most disrespectful things that you can do. So the next day, Gia comes correct and she confronts Tik about killing young Ja. She was like, I know it was you who killed my best friend. Yeah, ho, I was in that lineup. I know about you. And she's like, you know what? Truth be told, I was gonna kill your ass. But then I ended up catching stupid feelings for your stupid face. That's basically what she said, y'all. And then he was like, why'd you want to go out with me then if you knew it was me? And like, why didn't you say anything? And then she went, know this, boo. No book, not to one, will allow you to escape the thing that you have done. I was like, oh, read him. Read him like the book he loves so much. Read him to filth. And then after telling him about himself, she basically doubles back and is like, listen, we have both done bad things. Let's choose the good. And the very next scene is Gia taking this man's virginity. Again, the intimacy coordinator, if they had one on set, did their job because it looks real to me every single time. And then Gia confirms with her mother that yes, I am in love with this man. I can't shake it. But she also knows that because of what she really is, because of her true nature, it wouldn't be safe to be with him. And she is trying to convince herself and her mother that she can control her tails when she's around him so she doesn't kill him. And the mom is like, does he even know what you is? Like, do what you really are. I was like, damn, you ain't gotta say it like that. It's now winter of 1950. Tik and Gia are frolicking. They're a happy couple. And then we see her educating him on what a kumiho is. And this is when Tik tells her that he's earned enough points to rotate out and go home back to America. And he's like, well, I can choose to stay so we can be together. She's like, oh, I can't ask you to do that. And then he's like, well, then come with me. And then Gia's like, well, wait, there's something I need to tell you. And he didn't try to hear all that because he want to get in them drawers. So they're bumping pocketbooks and Gia's tails start, you know, slithering out of her body, and she is trying her best to keep them at bay. So Tik sees this and he's like, what in the actual blue fuck am I looking at? Can you imagine? Like, you up in it, you finish it, and then these 9 creepy crawly, hairy looking tails come out of nowhere. They start coming out of your girlfriend's body and they attach themselves to you. So Gia is able to see his entire life from beginning to end, and she sees that Tik is going to die. And Tik ain't with all that, obviously. Like, you know, he is scrambling out of this house, butt naked and all, talking about, you stay the f away from me. Whole time this girl's trying to tell this man, like, if you go home, if you go back to America, you are going to die. And that's the end of their relationship. The next morning, Gia and her mother go to see the shaman on top of the mountain. During this montage, we hear a soundbite of Judy Garland, what seems to be her in an interview talking about her life. You know, what people say about her, the expectations that are put on her because she's such a huge star, and what it does to her mentally and internally. Very deep and emotional piece, and I could not think of a better, you know, soundbite to put over this scene, especially because it relates to Gia so much. So the mom is seeking all the help she can get, even though Gia has not collected 100 souls. And the shaman's like, girl, why are you here if you don't have all 100 souls? I told you what the deal was. Gia just wants to know if the vision she had of Tik is going to come true. The shaman is like, yes, but girl, you're worried about the wrong shit. She tells Gia that you're gonna see so many deaths and tragedies before your journey is through, but there's still a small chance that her human self can be saved. And that is the end of episode 6. All right, we're going to jump right into my thoughts and commentary. The first thing I want to talk about is forbidden romance. Now, this is a trope that we've seen time and time again. It's very popular in the media. There is something Romeo and Juliet-esque about Tik and Gia. Not in the sense that they're in, you know, families that are rivals, but it's their destiny to be doomed. That's what I mean when I say it's very Romeo and Juliet-esque. You know, Tik was doomed from the moment he fell for her because he now knows that he is going to die because of Gia's powers. Not because of her powers, but indirectly, she found that out for him. And then Gia, she is fighting for her humanity, and she can never be truly happy because she's harboring this kumiho spirit, and it's really keeping her from her true happiness. So she might as well be doomed to be alone for the rest of her life. Falling in love is not an option for her, and we saw where that got her with Tik. I want to talk a little bit about the way the show centered Korean culture in this episode. Being that we were solely focusing on Gia, I do think it was important that we got to see, you know, aspects of Korean culture, especially when we're depicting the Vietnam War. And we did see some traditional practices. For example, in the beginning of the episode, her and her mom are prepping kimchi together. We also see how magic works in the Korean culture. This whole time we've been following Tik and his family and the magic that, you know, they have been involved with, you know, either stemming from hoodoo, voodoo, any type of homeland religions that we originated us as Black people, and then also diving into the Sons of Adam. Meanwhile, we get a little taste of the magical and religious essence of, you know, the supernatural in Korean culture. I'm glad that we got to see the shaman because she was mentioned a few times throughout that episode. So it was imperative that we saw the very person who put this spirit into Gia. Having her there as the voice of reason and, you know, the one who holds all the answers. It just adds to the depth of the story. The thing that jumped out at me the most in this episode was the commentary on racial intersectionality. We got to see a couple points of view from that. Take Gia, for example, our main focus in this episode. She is a woman in South Korea. Now, I'm aware that in some Asian cultures, I don't know if I say some because I don't know if it's all, but women are kind of like, you know, second tier to men, if that makes sense. Men are the powerful ones, they're the ones who lead, they're the ones in charge, and that's very similar to the dynamic that is in America as well. And then take Tick. We have a black man fighting in this war, right? And over here in this war in South Korea, he kind of sort of has a lot of power if you think about it. Like, look at him in the scene where he's mowing these innocent women down. The power dynamic is clearly established there. But on the flip side of that, he goes home, he is back in Jim Crow America being discriminated against. Tick and Gia both have had experiences with discrimination due to them being minorities, but it never means the same thing for either of them. Now, as we have the flip side of Tick being powerless and powerful, we have that same dynamic with Gia. In her culture, she doesn't have that much power socially, but behind closed doors, she's a f***ing kumiho who takes souls and bodies people. So yeah, all the power resides within her, literally. And then the last element that I want to point out for the racial intersectionality is that whole Judy Garland scene where she asks Sung and Tick, you know, have you met Judy Garland? Because she is so oblivious to how it is over in the States, because it's not the same. She does not know that minorities are looked at as second-rate citizens in America. They're not treated as people in America. She has no clue. So her naive nature and, let's be honest, ignorance kind of speaks to that commentary of the intersectionality. And Tick even tells her, the only way that me and Sung would know Judy Garland if I was her chauffeur and Sung was her butler, because white people don't, it's not what you think, it's not like the movies. She has this view of what American life is like due to these movies, and that's also another thing about perception, like the commentary of perception and how that can be quickly broken. And we see that multiple times throughout the episode, you know, perception being shattered. We see that when Gia gets to know Tick for who he is. We see that when the kumiho is speaking to the mom and she really boils down to what kind of person she is. We also see it when Young Ja confesses that she is a communist to Gia, and her perception shakes a little bit, but she still loves her because that's her best friend. But it's not the same as it was before. And there's also something to be said about the trauma coming from parent. When they were bonding, Tick told Gia about the rocky relationship he had with his father, and she's like, listen, I got mommy issues. My mom has not, it ain't been good between us either, so I totally get it. The trauma bonding, and of course I don't think Gia and Tick saw this as trauma bonding, but they saw it as, oh, they know what I'm going through. They understand what it's like to have a parent who, you know, doesn't act like a parent should toward their children, so they get it. I also want to talk about the commentary, this is my last thing, commentary on sex being a spiritual act. Now, I'm going to be referencing and quoting my sister, Nunny. If you're watching this, thanks for the gems, thanks for the knowledge, you're a real one. My sister always says that sex isn't just a physical act, it's also a spiritual act. Because not only are you sharing your body with someone, you're sharing and swapping energies. And I feel like that is portrayed and represented through the kumiho spirit in Jia when she's having intercourse, right? She literally absorbs their soul, their energy, and she can see their life and their energy and their memories. And as she takes these lives, they go into her and they change her. With every man that she sleeps with, she changes just a little bit. I feel like that speaks to that so much. Nunny, you're a real one for dropping that gem on me. Thank you. Now I know something new and now the nerds do too. Alright, but I'm done rambling. I really do enjoy this episode. I think it was a nice little break from the Chicago crew, and I'm glad that we got Gia's story, because it's very important that we have all sides of this crazy adventure that we're on. So yeah, I'm done. That was my review on episode 6, Meet Me in Daegu. This next episode is probably one of my favorites out of the whole series. Y'all, I'm talking Afrofuturism, and that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna leave it at that. You gotta wait till next week to find out what I'm talking about. So that concludes our video for today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. If you made it to the end of this video, comment a fox emoji for the kumiho. Okay? And subscribe if you want to. I'll see y'all on the next go around. Okay, bye.